family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
They say ignorance is bliss. For the first time in my life, I agree. I wish I had never uncovered the awful truth.
What are you, CIA? Mafia?
Oh. Hey, what'd you do to the world? Turned it off.
Your kids are starving. Carl's Jr. believes no child should go hungry. You are an unfit mother. Your children will be placed in the custody of Carl's Jr.
Billions of people just living out their lives. Oblivious. You're the Oracle?
Bingo. Not quite what you would expect, right?
Welcome to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and it is time for Humanity Transcending with Siobhan Searcy. So stick around. It's time to get inspired.
Welcome everybody to this very special edition of the Humanity Transcending show on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Be sure to join us on the chat today. Go to freedomslips.com, click on chat, pick a name, and get involved in the conversation. Today is April 25th, 2013, and I'm your host, Humanity Transcending. With us today is PJ and Christian of GTEN, Global Trust Education Network. And I'm going to do a brief intro because I would love to get them on the air pretty much as soon as possible because we have a lot that we want to go over. But let me tell you a little bit about Global Trust Education Network. GTEN is a private, not-for-profit trust organization comprised of a network of individuals serving the common good through trusteeship of private and charitable trusts organized for educational, literary, scientific, and spiritual purposes, to lessen the burden of governments, to defend and promote rights and freedom, and to actively assist in the sound, sustainable, enlightened evolution of mankind for a world that works for all life. G10.org members learn the methods, principles, trust structures, and operating tools for profound transformation of the ways in which they operate, both individually and for the collective good, by functioning effectively in trust, empowered with conscious creation and unalienable rights, secure in the only truly private form of organization for asset protection, our members create a legacy of freedom and opportunity. I was reading that from their website. You can go to GTEN.org, GTEN.org. Welcome, Christian. Welcome, PJ. Are you gentlemen with me?
I'm here. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. And thank you for being here. I'm really, really appreciative, and I know the listeners are just going to be able to absorb so much from what we're going to be talking about today. And it's all super, super important stuff, especially in these times that we're living in, these transformational times we're living in. So let's get right to it. Guys, folks, we have a nice outline for you with bullet points. We spoke the other day, and because there's a lot we want to cover, we really had to get clear on what, the sequence of what we were going to cover. So let's start, PJ and Christian, by, telling us, the listeners, a little bit about who you guys are, what you guys do, and then we'll go a little further from there. So take it away, PJ and Christian.
Okay. If I can have a little leash here, maybe I'll just start with our present destination. That is, I think it would be valuable to share where we've arrived after many years of search and research and discovery. By no means have I arrived at my life goals. I don't think PJ has either. And in fact, that's probably impossible, because the true nature of goals is that arriving at a goal simply presents better questions, and then off you go again, right? The best answer to anything is always a better question. But I think it wouldn't hurt to share some conclusions from where we sit, in the hopes that it might send your listeners into all sorts of better questions to ask themselves. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay, great. So for the past bunch of years, PJ and I have been studying the history of capitalism, the history of democracy, rules of law, commerce, contract, trust, jurisdiction, rights, and probably most importantly, consciousness. We've been looking at systems of governance and commerce through the lens of conscious awareness, which is pretty much the opposite, I think, of how most people address life, if you think about it. And most people seek truth through the lens of the fiction, the Maya, the box that we've grown up in, the box we've learned to live in. And then they wonder why they can't find truth. Okay, and we've been working as much as possible the other way. So from an understanding of pure consciousness, we've been examining the fiction. And I think it's safe to say that we found that it's time we all upgraded our operations. It's time to operate from the place we come from, instead of succumbing to the jurisdiction of the Crown, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the IMF, the Federal Reserve Bank, the government's actors they put in place to carry out their New World Order, etc., which, by the way, will not succeed. But I believe we've reached and recently passed a tipping point of global awareness. In that, I mean, there are enough of us now, and more waking up all the time, that I believe we've already tipped the probability of the future toward a world that works for all life. The definition of a tipping point is there's no stopping it once it's tipped. And that makes all the ancient prophecies about 2012 true. We've truly ended an era, a new era of enlightenment has begun. We're in the apocalypse. And apocalypse is a really interesting word. I don't know if you've ever looked it up, but the definition of apocalypse isn't death and destruction and mayhem. It's the lifting of the veil, the revelation of truth. And I believe that's where we are today. Okay, it may not look like it when you look around and you see things not the way they should be, perhaps, and a lot of people fall into fear from that and whatnot. But I believe this time right now, because we're at this tipping point, is the most exciting time mankind has ever experienced. At least. Agree with that, yeah, right? I mean, I've heard you say it too on your shows, and it's to me it's apparent. At least as far as we know from recorded history. Let's don't even speculate what Atlantis or anything might have what they might have experienced then. But from the recorded history, the record that we have, this is a really exciting time in our development. It's an opportunity for evolution. So we're blessed
in all areas of life. I mean, even like taking it from our personal relationships and our immediate life, but really taking that conscious awareness out into every area of life, which is which is what is special about what you guys do, because you've taken that conscious awareness, like you said, to those concepts and areas of freedom and jurisdiction and commerce and law and all these things. And these are parts of our life, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. We're all living in this society, sharing the land together. So even though we've been maybe unconsciously interacting with these concepts and tangibles, they're part of our life. So the more we can wake up to that and engage in those things consciously, the smoother ride we have, the more enjoyable ride we have, the more freedom we experience.
Right, absolutely. And it's sort of a matter of perspective, right? I mean, every problem that we perceive, and clearly we, as a group, mankind has created all sorts of problems, okay? And we're on an unsustainable path. We've created this, ridiculous economy based on the war machine and consumer consumption, and so now where are we? But every problem that we perceive is simply an opportunity when viewed from a higher perspective or a different viewpoint, right? So we live in this time of opportunity, and all we need to do is learn to operate with enlightened self-interest, with an understanding that we're all one, and that we will create a future that best serves life. And if we operate from that viewpoint, then we will create a future that best serves life. Like all goals, enlightenment's a path. It's not a destination, but we're making progress along the path, big progress. We know how to position ourselves to be free, to overcome, and to succeed. And that is a position worth showing to others, and that's why we created GTEN. For those who are ready, we're ready to show you how to live free of the system, how to stand on your rights, how to create something of lasting value for mankind and for all life.
And as Christian said,
profound. Yeah, PJ, I just wanted to say that's very profound statement that that you offer tools to operate different, to operate at a higher level in life outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. That's huge. A lot of people are kind of fed up, but don't necessarily know what the next step is, or even see beyond being a U.S. citizen, right? I mean, that's just nobody. Me growing up, I never considered anything else other than U.S. citizenship. It's what I was, and I didn't even know it was a political status or anything like that. It's just so brainwashed and dumbed down to not even consider these things. Sorry, go ahead, PJ.
Oh, no worries. We, as Christian said just a moment ago, it's all controlled by our perception. We help to open the doors of perception and to broaden the perception of what we are in this world. And it's coming from a higher sense of what we are. And like you just said a moment ago, you had no real understanding of what it was like to be anything other than a U.S. citizen. Yet we've had these rights, these rights and these endowments since we were born. So it's just a matter of changing our perception and opening up to what's around us and being a little more open. And as Christian just said, I think we're at the tipping point. We're at the point now where there are more of us than there are of quote unquote them. So.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you for that, kind of brief. We could talk about that just for 2 hours, but
right. Yeah.
Let's keep going. Next on our list was, we discussed kind of the common denominator and the, if you will, very brief history kind of leading up to this point. How is it that people have become entangled into a relationship of obligation with a corporate government? How did this happen? And what does U.S. citizenship entail? What is that actually?
Well, there are a number of ways people approach this information, right? I mean, I think all of your listeners probably, or most of them, have a sense that things aren't quite right, and probably know at this point that a lot of that comes from a realization that you're not the person, right? You're not the all caps name person. That's a public fiction. That's a juristic person created via the birth certificate and the social security number, and that's not you, okay? And so probably almost everyone has a good sense that things aren't right and something needs to be done, and we've been kind of duped, right? And when people start to wake up to this fact, different things occur for different people, right? One group could probably loosely be defined as conspiracy theorists, okay? They become aware of the conspiracy, get absorbed in the evil of it, and obsessed with the details of it. Right? They get mad, they get afraid.
That happened to me. I wrote a whole book about it.
Right, and I think it's a starting point for a lot of people when they wake up first to the information, rather than waking up maybe first to the spiritual awakening or to the to finding a solution. For most people, I think they get in a spot, they feel like it's not fair, and they get afraid, and they start to push back against the system, right? And the problem with that is they're fighting something they don't want, and when you're against something, you really only give it power, right? So the people on this level of understanding are really doing harm to themselves and others while they expose the truth at the same time. It's a painful place to be coming from. And I think there are a lot of people with that frustration right now. Don't you think that's a fair statement?
Very much so. No matter how we've started out on this path, and we addressed this a little bit the other day, but whether you started out kind of as a real patriot, waking up to the fiction and recognizing you're not that, but taking that route of kind of fighting what is, and then you kind of evolve from that and get a little less frustrated. But there still is this air of frustration because we have not known any other way of living and being. And so that, I think, is a frustrating place for a lot of people, a lot of seekers, quote unquote, because it's all we've known. So yeah, there's definitely a frustration there, of course, with the way the corporate government is operating, and what to do about that. What is it that one can do? It seems so big, it seems so beyond our control, but it's not, because we know even scientifically now, and what the ancients have told us, everything is within our control in our own little world. I'm in control of my thoughts and my behaviors and my actions. So how to reconcile all of that? Yeah, there's definitely some frustration.
Well, and you raise an interesting point, and that's sort of the next stage I think that people hit, is that there's sort of a spiritual awakening. You do start to take accountability for it at some point, and the conspiracy becomes less a we and they. They're doing this to us, they're doing this to me. And through a spiritual awakening, I think you come upon this understanding that we're all one, and that there is no they. Okay, I may not like the way things are, but it doesn't mean there's someone out to get me. Now, there are opportunistic people on the planet, and some of them at the very top tier are running this planet. But that doesn't mean that I need to create in myself this feeling that that there's a we and they, and they're doing this to me. I mean, it's all in an understanding that it's all we. Okay.
It's all we.
Yeah.
It's all we.
It's all we. It's individual responsibility.
You got anything you want to say about that, PJ?
Yeah, it's really, it boils down to, as a collective consciousness, we have to act as if we were representing the public at any given time, even while preserving our natural and private rights. So it really boils down to individual responsibility, because when we balance ourselves and we are responsible, that reflects upon everyone else around us. And so we help to sidestep that frustration. We always have that frustration, and it comes from individual responsibility. It comes from raising your awareness, opening your consciousness, and kind of breaking open the head and learning that you are fully responsible for everything around you, regardless of what's happening. And that responsibility is transmitted through perception. Perception is what you truly have control of. And once again, coming full circle, what we work to do is we work to enlighten people and open their perception to other focuses, other ways of operating, to govern themselves and to help others around them in a way that is fully responsible and, without the need of government assistance. Lessen the burden of government, one of our mission statements.
Okay, so in terms of the common denominator, I know when we were exploring this, we were talking about the different movements that have arisen, so to speak, or the same movement, but just kind of different areas of it. So you have like in the beginning, at least what I first stumbled upon was like the sovereign movement, become a sovereign, and that was like really appealing, even though I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew it had something to do with my freedom, and so that was really attractive. And then you kind of navigate through that, and you may stumble upon what's called secured party creditor or commercial redemption remedies, things like that, and that's another area. And then through that, you do become introduced to trust and trust law and how everything is a trust, from the birth certificate is evidence of a trust, and how the license is. All of this. So what is the common thread between all of those things? Because they're a little different from each other, but I think they all spawn from the same desire to embody one's inherent rights and freedom. What do you guys think about that? Or what would you say about that?
Sure. The Patriot movement really started it, right? And that was decades ago. And we owe a debt of gratitude to those guys, because they exposed a whole lot of information, right? And they really did the work and tried to figure out a solution to it. And what might have been lacking at that point was the spiritual understanding. They were just mad, and that's overgeneralizing. But the Patriot movement then sort of became the sovereign movement, which sort of became the creditor movement, which now I think is through the stages, bringing more and more of the spiritual understanding into it. The discipline of studying conscious awareness as consciousness, as much as the pure conspiracy and or remedy avenue, right? So we're seeing all of these groups kind of culminate in this question. Okay, now that we know things are as messed up as they are, what do we do about it, right?
Right.
Right. And as I said, fighting the problem only makes the problem stronger. So what's needed is solutions that address the opportunities rather than fight the problems.
I like that. Say that again. Everybody, just listen up. Say that again.
Okay. So fighting the problem it only makes a problem stronger. Okay, in being opposed to anything, only and through that opposition creates strength in the opponent, right? The opponent rises to the fight as well. So what's needed is a parallel solution or a set of solutions that address the opportunities instead of fighting the problems.
I love it. Right. Solutions that address the opportunities. Go ahead, PJ.
So no, he's 100% correct. Solutions that address the opportunities as opposed to addressing the problem. And I think it was Tony Robbins that said that every problem is just an opportunity waiting to happen. So what we're looking at is, as you said, the common denominator comes down to, I think, perception and one's knowledge of their rights, their unalienable rights. And as you said before, another similar common denominator is that everything is in fact a trust to some extent. Trust is very easy to explain. It's just a property interest held by one person at the request of another for the benefit of a third party. So, I mean, you deal with these things in everyday life at any moment. So the whole common denominator really boils down to our perception, our knowledge of rights, and what we do with it.
Okay. And so how does one what suggestions do you have for one to become familiar with their rights? I mean, then again, the majority of people, right, have gone to public school, so rights have been not even on the radar growing up as a child for me. Never on my radar. So how...
I got you, and that's something that's very interesting because we're raised with it, but we don't really.
PJ, we lose you?
What happened to PJ? He's still connected. Oh.
I wonder his Skype crashed. We'll let him get back on. I don't know exactly what he was going to say. I can take it in a little different direction.
Sure.
So we need to collaborate. Okay, we want to develop free energy. We want to localize farming. We want to support organic farming. We want to clean up ourselves and our land. We need to develop new systems of commerce that don't use elastic currency. Okay, and don't base all value on scarcity. Right? That's the issue with socialism, capitalism. Pretty much every system that's in place today is that all value is placed on scarcity, and which isn't real. The truth of the universe is abundance. Okay, and so we need to learn to govern ourselves and reduce government, etc. And this is the time and opportunity to do it. So how do we as individuals position ourselves so that we can accomplish what's there to be done? And when PJ and I started GTEN, we did it with this specific question in mind. We'd studied all kinds of, information and remedies and tried all kinds of different stuff. And we'd worked with mortgages and debt elimination and all kinds of stuff, right?
Kind of where I'm at right now is like, like kind of where my focus is, what you're saying, sort of the remedy realm.
Right.
Yeah, we've helped several people with mortgages, with debt remedy. We've worked a long time with things like that in the past, and it's there's a lot of
be honest. I want to know the truth, so be honest about your experience. And
it's a learning curve.
Okay.
That's a true statement. It's the biggest thing is with all that remedy stuff, if you don't personally own it, if you don't get it yourself, if you can't do the work yourself and make it work, then it won't work, no matter what the remedy is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you know enough to take control of the situation and contract, properly, you can get all kinds of stuff done with it.
There is no magic paperwork.
There's no magic paperwork. There are good ideas expressed, in all sorts of templates and stuff out there. But the fact is, if you don't own it, if you don't know it, and if you're not personally committed to it, it won't work.
Yeah.
And with what you just said, let me add on to that. It takes that knowledge of unalienable rights, that individual responsibility, and that understanding of self-governance to even operate in the way that we're talking, or even to create a trust like we're talking about, like we're going to get into here in the future. So there's already the stepping stone of breaking open the head, opening the perception, taking responsibility, and governing yourself accordingly before one can truly start to reach remedy.
Right. All of those things, that's so foundational to yes. Have an understanding of one's inherent rights, to have an understanding that the way one reacts and perceives all of this will affect the outcome of it. Like that has
very much.
Oh yeah. Intention is the soul of the instrument.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about the lens of the fiction, and then I want to jump into basically, specifically what you guys offer through your education and the tools that you offer through the education. I think now more than ever is the time to, for many people, myself included, to engage in this education. It is ideally what all free people should be aware of growing up. But of course, we know the state of affairs, so we haven't. But all of that education is precious. I've been exploring it the past couple of days, and I'm fully in. So I'd really like to just suggest to others that you open up to the educational material GTEN has to offer. It is really stellar. So talk to us about the lens of the fiction a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's again a matter of perspective, right? And I think that one of the first things that people realize is, like I said, that they're not the person, right? And if you look up the definition of person, you start to understand that a person is a corporation as much as it's an individual. It can be either. And just
for purpose of specificity, can you define or just share with the listeners what you mean by the legal person? Would that be the all capital letter name entity on these like birth certificates and things issued by the government, the state?
Right. So if you start to look around your life at where your name appears, the driver's license, the credit cards, the bank statements, the mortgage paperwork, just all of it, right? You start to realize that it's an all capital letters spelling of a name that's similar to yours, but by the English language, putting it all capital letters means it's not the same name. Okay, and I think this is where a lot of people start with this information, right? It's a pretty foundational understanding that you're not the person. So what is the person? Well, it's an ens legis. It's a juristic person. It's a fiction. It's a corporate entity, and it comes from a trust. Okay, it is the name of a trust, which is actually part of an even larger public trust. Okay, and so it is a vehicle, a vessel created by the system upon your birth and Social Security number issuance for you to conduct commerce. The problem with it is the government is the trustee. Okay, your parents were, you're the grantor by your parents because you were a minor, you were just born, and this entity was created that's not you. Okay, and so there's if you step back and look at it, okay, there's you. You are spirit, God, Yahweh, consciousness, pure energy. You are this spiritual being, this light being. Okay, and when you come into this three-dimensional world that we live in here, you come out of your mother with a body. Okay, and you're given a family name. You're given an upper and lowercase name, and you take on part of your family name. Okay, so all of this can be said in some way to be part of you, or it's another way of looking at it is it's a private trust that's created that holds the body and the name and the upper and lowercase name and all of that. Okay, and then there's this paperwork where your mother is the informant and this other legal fiction is created. Okay, and it is the all capital letters name. Some people call it the straw man. And if you actually look up straw man in a legal dictionary, you'll see that's what it describes. So it's not just talking about the Wizard of Oz here, although the Wizard of Oz is about that too. But so here's this ens legis, this legal fiction that's created. And like I said, the problem with it is that you're not the trustee of it. Okay, your parents were the informants. It was created with you and the Federal Reserve Bank as beneficiaries, basically, and you're not in charge of it. Now, you are the executor of that estate that's created, that fiction, and you have the right to you have the liberty to use that, okay, in commerce. However, if you want to know who's in charge of it, just go into court or wait and see if your driver's license gets renewed or whatever. I mean, that entity is controlled by the trustee ultimately, which is the government, not you. Mm-hmm. And so that's the fiction, or that's part of the fiction that causes such problems for people, especially if they don't realize that it's not them. Okay, once you get past that and you realize that that's not you, you're good. You can stop using it. Okay,
well,
you don't have to.
Well, that's the next level, though, of like the how to, right? Again, because it's like, well, I've been using it all my life, so how on earth do I stop using it when everybody's asking for it at the banks, at the wherever? And we'll get into that later, but just putting that out there because I know others must experience that same thing when they get to that point of, okay, I get that this is not me. I don't even own this entity. It was, it came from the government. It was created by that government. Now what? What to do now? How on earth do I not use this thing? And I know you guys, and I know you mentioned the other day, Christian, that you don't use it at all. Except for maybe when you travel out of the country. But that's it. Other than that, you don't use this corporate fiction.
Right.
So I just want people to know it's completely possible to operate outside of U.S. jurisdiction. I am certainly on my way, and I just know that it's possible for anyone that wants it. So let's just be real clear that this is not like fantasy. We're not speculating. This is not theory. It is entirely possible and is already being done.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Real
people
quick.
living outside of it. Please go ahead.
Yeah, let's relate the person to its etymological sense, the persona. Gaius of Rome is quoted to say that the word person, in its primitive and natural sense, signifies the mask with which actors who played dramatic pieces in Roman Greece covered their heads. These pieces were played in public places and afterwards in such vast amphitheaters that it was impossible for a man to make himself heard by all the spectators and later by all the judges. Recourse was had to art. The head of each actor was enveloped with a mask, the figure of which represented the part he was to play, and it was so contrived that the opening for the emission of his voice made the sounds clearer and more resounding. When the name persona was given to the instrument or mask, which facilitated the resounding of his legal voice, okay, it facilitates the resounding of the legal voice.
Wow.
It's a vehicle by which you can be heard. The name persona was afterwards applied itself to itself which the actor had undertaken to play, because the face of the mask was adopted to the age and character of him who was considered as speaking. So I'm not going to continue on, but basically what it's stating here is that these persons are a representation in a certain theater or a venue. They are used to be heard. As you know, it's very simple to just take off the mask.
And put on a different one if you want.
That's right. That's right. Because what happens when we take off the mask? We can no longer be heard by the masses. We're no longer a commercial fiction. We're no longer operating in commerce.
We can't be heard in that venue.
You're a living man. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. You cannot be heard in that venue.
Okay. Getting it. I hope everybody out there is just kind of absorbing this, and nothing needs to be figured out right now, but just be open to absorbing what you're hearing. And even if you know about this stuff already, you can't hear about it enough.
That's right.
You just got to keep pounding it in, just like everything else is pounding information and data into you constantly. Let this really, really soak in, guys, because we are on the cusp of definitely an era of freedom. I mean, I think like you guys do, I think we've already reached the tipping point, and now we just, as we take more responsibility for our lives, for our thinking, for everything in our lives, we now need the tools, the tangible tools, to be able to embody all of that physically in this 3D.
We need like a new mask, right? We need a new
mask. And a new script, a new mask, a new script, and a new
There
play.
we go.
Absolutely.
A new script, I like that. The articles, the way of which we operate, the bylaws, right?
Yes.
There we go. So the mask, let's talk a little bit about the mask. What is the mask? The new mask that we're going to be using. Well, since we see that everything is a trust in all forms, there's always something happening that's operating in trust. The basis of all laws is formed in trust. Trust law and equity are some of the oldest law forms known to man, next to natural and divine law and common law. So what we want to talk about is we want to talk about trust. Well, we gave a definition of what a basic trust is. There's several different forms of trust. In creating a trust, one can create a trust in several ways, but there's two basic ways. It can be created by act of a party, or it can be created by act of the law. Under act of the law, it can be resulting or constructive. Constructive is what you see in court when you're charged and you're placed as trustee for probate to probate that account. We don't want to get too deep into that. We might talk about it a little bit. I just want to move on with this. Whereas a resulting trust could be something by way of death or by way of will and testament, something of that nature. Act of a party.
Oh no, did we lose PJ again?
Oh no.
He was like...
He was on a roll.
He was on a roll.
That's cool. He'll be back.
He'll be back.
He's been having some Skype conflicts with his computer, so I assume that's what's going on there. Well, listen, we've both been working with mortgage and other debt issues in court and all the other sovereignty issues and examine remedies, and it's all the stuff put forth by the patriots, the sovereigns.
You've been through it all. You've come full
right.
circle, and you're still growing. But
the question that keeps getting begged here is well, so okay, let's assume all of this is correct. Now, what do we do about it? And so we knew that the essential thing missing in this body of information and all the people studying it and everyone looking at it was a foundational set of tools to operate. Okay? All these people are waking up to the facts, and very few know what the heck to do about it. So we made the choice to start creating webinars that define the tool sets, that give people a rock-solid way forward. And we specifically wanted to work with individuals who are ready to make a difference in their lives, whose intentions are good, and who are ready to move forward and do something worthwhile. And so that's the way we've approached GTEN. We made a promise to each other that we were not going to get into debt or remedy issues. We weren't going to live in the past anymore. We weren't going to take on coaching clients, for example, that had that needed to do administrative processes to deal with this, that, and the other because their lives were a mess. There's plenty of information out there, and it can be learned and it can be done, and we had to clean up our own lives as well, right? But we did that already. And so with GTEN, we placed the goal squarely on that question. What do we do now? How do we set up to operate right? What are the tools that are needed, and how do we get those tools into as many people's hands as possible so that people can really actually start to operate from a position of strength, from unalienable rights, from freedom, and without the fiction overtaking them. You still have to interact with the fictional world of commerce, but there's a right way to do it. There are a number of right ways to do it, and unfortunately, almost everybody has been doing it in a detrimental way because that's all they've known. So now we've got some solutions to do it the right way.
Excellent. And this is certainly a point where I'm at. I'm ready for something a little different because I see the success in certain areas with the remedies. Obviously, like you said, if you know how to contract, you can take care of a lot of things like that. But then there's other areas where it is tricky and it may not work. And so I myself, and I know others are kind of at that point of like, okay, let's just do this all the way. let's be all in here, not kind of like, half and half. Because in a way with the remedies, sometimes you're still working with the numbers issued by the state. Let's say the Social Security number, for instance. If you're using it, without dashes as an exemption number, that still comes from the fiction world in a way, right? So
right. So if let me just put an idea out there. I'm not suggesting this for everyone, and I don't give legal advice. But what if you were to just walk away from the mess that your straw man or your ens legis person has created? What if you just said, okay, I'm not going to use that anymore? And you had another structure set up, like a private express trust structure where you could operate and you could bank and you could do what you want to do. You could create corporations, LLCs. You could, set up charitable trust, whatever you want to do in life, you could still do it. But you don't need that Social Security account, and you don't want that number, and you don't want to use it anymore. What if you just walked away? What would happen?
That's my question.
Okay, well, I know what happens. I know
tell me what happens.
Your credit report all blows up at once if it's not already destroyed. And all of the would-be debt collectors go looking to see if on your credit report if there's any chance of collecting. And since everything already just completely blew up and it's obvious that the whole world is trying to collect from that fictional entity, that entity is now judgment proof. Okay, that entity, can take an infinite number of hits now. I mean, who cares if there are new liens, new judgments, new whatever, new losses in court? Who cares? Because if you're not going to use it anymore, what the heck does it matter?
Yes, if you're not tying yourself to it anymore.
right? So if you get out of the mindset of actually caring what that entity's credit report looks like, and because you're not going to use it anymore, you're going to operate privately and through trust, and you're going to choose your own trustees instead of the default government being the trustee, and a de facto government at that. What do you care what that thing looks like, and what that credit report looks like? Who cares? Who cares anymore?
Do you have any thoughts on the mindset that might say, well, because of our irresponsibility and ignorance, we've created all this debt in the public by the use of the name, not really knowing what we're doing, making a mess in commerce. Do you subscribe to being, let's say, honorable and cleaning that up, or really just walking away and leaving it be? I
don't think walking away is dishonorable, honestly. But I think that honor in what you do and full accountability is essential to operating correctly, to operating in a way that moves you forward in a positive manner. So full accountability, I think, is one of the biggest things in my life. I think it's very, very important. But again, that that fiction is not you, and if you look deep enough at any of those alleged debts, they're not debts. So if you can get to the point of understanding the information that all that really occurred was that every time you signed your name and associated it with that social security number or that all caps name person, you were creating the money into the system, lending it to the banks who could leverage it out 10 times in the fractional reserve banking system and make a ton of money off of your deposit. Okay, so you created the money. Creditor means creator. You were the creator. You were the true creditor of that instrument that they say you owe a debt on. It came from your energy. Okay, they can't create money. Only individuals can. Only the citizens, the all caps name fictions can create money into their system.
Right, like the life force of everything, right, where everything comes from.
Right. So if you understand, and this was the key of the creditor movement that sort of came in and replaced the sovereignty movement, is that it's recapturing what that word creditor means. Mm-hmm. The creditor movement isn't referring to the banks; it's referring to the individuals. The creditors are the individuals, and we create the money into the system. And so all you've ever been doing all your life is loaning all those banks money. Okay, and then they have the nerve to come back and try to collect it from you again.
Again.
Okay, so I don't think there's anything dishonorable in walking away from all that mess. The truth is, it's as simple on an unsecured credit. It's as simple as writing a letter when they send you the notice that says something is due, or you have 30 days to refute this, or from a debt collector or whatever. It's as simple as saying, fine, I completely agree to collect to pay the full amount due tomorrow, as long as you can send me a verified invoice. And they can't. And the reason is, all they can do is make statements. That's why everything's called a statement. A verified invoice. A verified invoice means it's got to be signed, sworn that it's true, and that they provided some service or good to you, and they didn't. So if you just conditionally accept, I'm perfectly happy to pay this, just send me a verified invoice and I'll pay it, you'll never get one. Why? Because they can't bill you for something they didn't provide. They know they didn't loan you any money.
PJ, anything you want to say about that?
Well, as far as debt collection, things like that, I think Christian hit it dead on. I think it's really a matter of being honorable and remedying debts that you've created in the public. I believe are two different things to some extent. They can be distinguished, although there is a fair amount of honorability in taking care of those things. But like Christian says, it's everything that's created in fiat. There's a little bit of an
an echo. With, by any chance, is the volume up anywhere on your... There we go. Perfect. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I've muted and unmuted. It seems to be fine now. We good?
You're good.
Okay, great. Yeah. So as I was saying, being honorable and handling certain charges in public are, I believe, can be easily distinguished. For example, an officer can easily charge you for something that you feel you may not owe, and it all revolves around the same thing that Christian just said. It's still a charge. It's still a statement. It's still an offer. So, once again, it boils down to where are we operating from inherently? And if we're operating directly from the person and we're attempting to handle that and remedy that, you're going to meet with this frustration that that there's this person that you're not, and you're attempting to operate as if you control that person but are not that person. You run into a lot of issues. And I know you've probably run into those personally as well, attempting to not be the person, quote unquote, in court or something of that nature.
Oh, yeah. Quite in my own everybody's got their story, right? I certainly have mine.
That's right. So, I think the remedy to that is fully controlling where we operate from. And I think that's what the Private Express Trust allows us.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm thinking people are probably like, well, what can we do then? And all of this conversation is great, but what can we do? And so maybe we can, being that we're coming into the second hour of the show soon, we can start really getting into what the Private Express Trust is, and what that's all about. I'm hearing echo. Is that anybody's volume?
I'm muted out, so it must be PJ's end or yours.
Okay. Am I the only one that hears that echo?
Yeah, no, I hear it. Your voice is echoing.
Okay. I'm not hearing it anymore, so whatever happened is good. Okay, so who's with me? Christian and PJ. Are you both with me still?
Yes.
Here.
Okay, good.
PJ, what if you talked a little bit about what you would do with the court scenario or whatever? I mean, the argument that comes up, that a judge will even insist on having is, whether or not you're the person. So what do you do about it?
Well, it's the big "who are you," right? Who are you?
What's your name?
What's your name? Who are you? Well, we've all heard individuals speak about the the priority security interest holder in the estate. We've spoken about operating, coming from a quote unquote sovereign perspective and stating that you're not the person and that you're here to settle the claim. Well, you're running into an immediate issue because the judge is going to spend more time attempting to depose you on the stand or attempting to depose you at the bar than he's going to try and get your case rolling. So you're going to run into so much more flack when you're attempting to battle this.
The name game, right? You could call
the
that
name game.
Going in and playing the name game about that's not me. You may refer to me as Siobhan. I wouldn't when they called Miss Cerisi during the court case. I didn't respond to that. I said, "Well, Siobhan is here if that's who you're looking for because I know Mr. and Mrs. to imply corporate title." So it really gets kind of insane. It gets really.
Yeah,
it's
they've heard all that stuff.
Position to hold.
It is.
Yeah, they've heard all that stuff before. They're wondering what you're trying to do, and so they're.
No, I'll just tell you this. I want to hear the rest of that. I'll just tell you this little snippet of my experience at one point when I especially appeared in court. The judge wouldn't speak to me and he wouldn't look at me. I had been putting in affidavits, and so he had, it was just interesting how it went down. He had one of the attorneys, the public servant attorney, speaking to me outside of the courtroom. And when I was in the courtroom, sitting there, he asked if I was here because the attorney said Siobhan of the Cerisi family, and the judge, knowing I was in the courtroom, said, "Is she here?" And it was just very strange. So it kind of, I mean, you see interesting things happen when you take that approach, but it doesn't get anything settled unless you really, really can hold it. And that's my point is just, you may see some interesting things and you may see that it looks like it's going in your favor, but ultimately it's not necessarily going to get you your remedy or settle anything for you. And that's really what we want in the end, just to not be hassled with it.
Well, you were walking onto the stage with your mask in your hand instead of on your face, and so they can't hear you.
Yeah.
So, and as far as we're concerned, we don't need to appear because we have a major lien. There's a major lien against this person that's held by a private trust. And when an entity holds a priority security interest, it is their duty and obligation to protect their interest from any other encumbrance. So, why go in and attempt to handle this as a priority security interest holder if you've never distinguished the separation between the two entities and you're attempting to operate from an entity that can't be seen? It doesn't have a mask. Mm-hmm. Why not create your own mask? Why not create something that is created by private contract?
You're saying so that you can be recognized by the other entities. So, what would be the purpose of having a mask anyway? Because somebody in the chat said, well, why put on any mask?
Well, because as we know, it is all corporate fiction. So how would you be able to operate in fiction if you are not fiction yourself? A living man cannot appear on any kind of contract unless the contract is private. If it's in the public, if it's a public contract and you're using your person between chartered organizations that have been chartered by states or by federal governments, then there is a jurisdiction that is within that realm, and there has to be a certain mask to enter that stage.
PJ, hold that thought. I want you to pick up exactly where you're leaving off when we come back. We're going to break, everybody. You're tuned into the Humanity Transcending show on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am with JP and Christian of Global Trust Education Network, and we will be right back.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Hello everyone, Lorian Fenton here to tell you about an event you can't miss. Super Soldiers and Mind Control Summit 2, May 17th, 18th, and 19th in Henderson, Nevada. 24 presentations by 12 experts and 12 experiencers will cover the Super Soldier program's mind control, covert surveillance, electronic harassment in all its forms, and so much more. The presenters are tops in their field and include Douglas Dietrich, Carrie Cassidy, Solaris Blue Raven, Robert Duncan, Miles Johnston, creator of the Basis YouTube series, and several very special secret guests will be there as well. So join me at the Super Soldiers and Mind Control Summit 2. To purchase your tickets now, visit supersoldiersummit.com. That's supersoldiersummit.com.
Tuesday afternoon on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we present our goddess spiritual warrior, Kathy Bilski.
I command. I call to the architect of the universe's divine creators and ask for permission to quantum leap the world in all life forms on all planes and dimensions, seen and unseen, connected with planet Earth, to let us go beyond our known potential into the greatest unknown golden age the universes and worlds and all planets have ever experienced.
Kathy teaches the spiritual truth so that you may create a better life and be able to make positive changes for yourself and for the planet. She helps us remember that we are not powerless, but very creative spiritual beings having an Earth experience. Time to quantum leap into the age of divine enlightenment and let Kathy provide you with the tools of knowledge you need to awaken spiritually. That's the Quantum Leap Show. Let Light Unite every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat masses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat masses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
Finder of lost children and missing persons. Monique Lassan. Surveilling civil and criminal investigations. I investigate.
No, I am the chosen one.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child.
Yes, every Thursday afternoon on Revolution Radio, come join our very own Eye Investigatrix, Monique Lassan, with her Private Eye X-Files. Private Eye X-Files, every Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
I realize it's very hard for you to take in. But is your destiny to find the golden child?
Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Humanity Transcending Show on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, April 25th, 2013. I am here today with PJ and Christian of GTEN, that is Global Trust Education Network. Please visit their website, www.gten.org, and you can visit me, Humanity Transcending, at www.humanitytranscending.com. I will most definitely have the archive available and up on the site once it's ready. I know Wolf Spirit Radio is recording this show today live, and the show will be in their archives as well, probably later on today. And also check for the archive on YouTube, the Revolution Radio YouTube channel. So back to the subject at hand. PJ, we left off right in the middle of you saying some very important things. So would you please go back to what you're saying?
We were talking about the mask. We were talking about the name game and looking to sidestep the frustration of when appearing, whether in court or in any form of contracting. You're going through the name game we were talking about. Who are you? What's your name? And not wearing the mask, quote unquote, as we were talking about the person When walking in, you're there at the you're there on stage. You're looking to act. As we know, the court is definitely a theater. It's a venue, and you're holding your mask at the side. Well, nobody can hear you. Nobody can hear what you're saying. One of your individuals in the chat asked, well, why do we need to wear masks, period? Well, since the inception of Social Security, the inception of the person, quote unquote, there has been a system set up where we operate within that commercial atmosphere, and we are recognized by our person, literally. It's a very easy way to describe, but what we're talking about here is separating ourselves from that. So there's the sovereign that we spoke about, or the secured party. Well, you've gone in attempting to operate as one of those individuals not wearing the mask. And what we need a new mask. So what GTEN does is we help empower individuals to create their own quote-unquote mask, their own person. I'm going to read a little bit from an excerpt of Trustees in Commerce by Carlton Weiss.
Okay, and I want to hear that in a sec. I have a question from a listener. This is actually a good friend of mine up in Canada who is one of those people that we talked about before, kind of, who was doing this a long time ago and tried a lot of things and had his ups and downs with it, but he's very, very knowledgeable about these things. And so he poses the question, isn't the purpose of a mask so that the private man or woman can interact with the public? And would not having a corporation enable you to do this? Can a trust by itself interact with the public? Like, could the private express trust in itself interact with the public, or is that's completely not in the same planet realm, right?
Okay, no. What he's talking about is, the answer is yes, but under certain circumstances. You see, we haven't gotten into the express trust yet, and we will here in just a moment, and we'll talk about availing it to certain jurisdictions, and that will answer the conditions as to that yes answer. Okay. So we will touch on that in just a moment. Let's kind of explain a little bit of what the express trust under common law is. So, the sovereign, in order to be a sovereign, one needs to, they need to have land, they need to have guns, they need to be able to protect themselves. There's only 3 sovereign nations, as far as I'm told, in the world, and one of them is the Vatican, one of them is DC, and the other one is the Lower East Side of London. And these are sovereign entities that are operating however they see fit. Now, just so we understand the idea of sovereignty, it's kind of the fact that we are endowed as creators. We are natural beings that are not bound by this persona or this mask. So we take all that and we place a simple barrier between the sovereign or the secured party and commerce. The barrier is called an express trust under common law. You throw out the fragile sovereign crown and give a man a bulletproof trustee helmet. Now, instead of him owning a plot of land with a castle, having a royal army and a royal staff of workers, stockpiling his own weapons, having Federal Reserve notes or minted coins in his personal possession, and understanding all applicable bodies of law to protect himself, which a sovereign needs to know, he now does things on behalf of a trust. So that's the problem solved. He needs to eat, but does he buy directly from the store with his own Federal Reserve notes or silver dimes? No. He buys on behalf of the trust and works out a private contract with that trust that enables him to eat the trust's food and offset his trustee compensation the trust owes him for carrying out his daily duties. He sees an advantage to owning a ranch in a certain jurisdiction, but does he make an offer to purchase in his own name and thereby acquire personal ownership of the property? No. He draws up an offer to purchase or an offer to buy if the trust has gold on hand, because there is a difference between an offer to purchase and an offer to buy. The trust acquires the property, and the beneficiaries of that trust benefit from his wise decision. He can then contract
PJ dropped you again. Christian, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's an interesting piece he's reading, and it definitely goes to answer your listener's question too.
Did I drop?
You did.
Yeah.
Get back. Please continue.
Where did I drop off at?
You dropped off at, I don't remember the exact sentence, but probably about 10 sentences back or 3 sentences back.
Okay. Were we talking about owning a ranch yet, or?
You were just getting to that.
Okay, yeah. So, we don't want to make an offer to purchase in his name and acquire the property and ownership on our own. We want to draw up an offer to purchase or an offer to buy if we have gold on hand. So the trust acquires the property, and the beneficiaries of that trust benefit from his wise decision. He can then contract privately with the trust as to how he may use that property, offsetting his compensation if that use involves anything outside his duties as trustee, because a trustee has what's known as incidental benefit of trust control or of property control. So even so, there are ways to keep things strictly within trusteeship if you're really serious about living a trustee's life. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about operating through the trust and allowing the trust to handle all forms of commerce for us. Now, the question that your gentleman had asked is, can that trust be availed to the public? Right. Yes, but it does, in fact, avail itself to jurisdiction of the public and kind of defeats the purpose. So this is a private trust. It's under private contract. It's developed with the intention to interact or interface with the public through a series of entities. And that's what we teach.
Mm-hmm. So there's the base entity, the private express trust under the common law, and then there are trusts that come out of that can interact with the public. Is that
right?
It's kind of an easy way. Christian, do you have something?
Sure. The private express trust is private. If you operate it correctly, you don't want to avail it to the federal jurisdiction or any other, and so it remains private. However, it can contract with anyone else. It creates a natural person. If you look up private express trust and what that is, it is a natural person. It is a person that can do anything any individual can do. Okay, but in doing certain things, as PJ said, it avails it to that jurisdiction. So what you want to do is create a trust that can contract privately, and then sort of replicate it into other trusts that create a trust web, and that trust web, and the way it interacts with the way the other trusts interact with the private trust, you have special purpose vehicles. They can hold the asset value of corporations. They can do all kinds of things, so that you can still operate from the private without giving jurisdiction, and you can manage these other vessels as well. Okay, and it starts with an understanding of the private express trust, which is what we teach in our private trust education webinar. And then there are exempt organizations, there are special purpose vehicles, there are corporations and LLCs, there's the trust web structure. You can create whatever you need for your purposes from this kernel of privacy.
It's by way of pass-through entity is what it's known at. And just to kind of add on to what you're saying, Christian, the clear definition of what an express trust is not merely a property interest held by one for the benefit of another, or the benefit of another like a regular basic trust. It is a trust created by private contract for the holding of divisible property interest, wherein the trustee is empowered by the settlor to do for a beneficiary of his choosing, meaning the trustee has full discretion, choosing whatever he may do for himself as an individual sui juris. So what's been created here is a trust organization lawfully by natural right, not by charter, by state, or by federal government, but by natural right to contract. As a general proposition, it may be asserted that one who creates a trust may mold it into whatever form he pleases, and that whatever one may lawfully do for himself, he may authorize another to do for him. This doing so requires no benefit, no privilege, no franchise from any government or any outside party. And that is the distinguishing factor of a private express trust from any other trust or any other entity that is formed in public.
Okay. There's a question. Can a trust, I guess specifically the trust we're talking about, the Private Express Trust, can it own real property or an automobile? Or would that be one of the other trusts that like arise after that trust? That would be how would that work? That's the question.
Now we're getting into web structures, and the purpose of the master trust, though, let's just say that there's 5 of these trusts existing right now, okay? And one of them we want to keep private. One of them we want to use for a vehicle. One of them we want to use for property. We separate the liabilities between entities to ensure that if one entity has been compromised, it does not lose it does not maintain the liability against property that's being held in there. So we separate the property by way of different entities. Mm-hmm. The master trust would maintain a security interest, what we've been talking about before, a priority security interest over a trust that would be holding property. That trust would need some form of operational currency, something that they're going to need, some overhead. So they would then take a loan to operate that vehicle, to maintenance that vehicle, to garage that vehicle, and to operate the trust that handles that vehicle. Those funds would be... I'm sorry?
Sorry, no, I just clicked. So you're saying that master trust holds the priority security interest over another trust.
Right, and it has a right to place in a notice of interest in any case when that property or that interest is being encumbered by another party because they have what's known as a first-in-time, first-in-line lien right.
Okay.
So that's basically where we go with that.
Got it. I think you answered that really well. That was pretty clear. Christian, anything on your mind that you want to add to this?
Sure. Why not? I know you wanted to get into what GTEN is, and you know, definitely we're centered around private express trusts and how to create them, operate them lawfully, and how to benefit through them and the use of them. But GTEN itself is, I think it's worth describing for a moment. GTEN is a network. It's a global trust education network, and the network aspect is important to note. It's a network of individuals serving the common good through trusteeships. Okay, we serve as trustees for numerous organizations and projects that support a sustainable future. Okay, and then GTEN.org is a purpose-specific member organization run by GTEN. So GTEN.org is organized as a not-for-profit trust and foundation, and its purpose is to educate individuals in how to set up and operate private express trusts. Okay, how to operate under unalienable rights or unalienable rights, and then how to create trust webs and exempt organizations that benefit the public without availing the trust or its trustees to public or a federal or state jurisdiction. Okay, so that's what we teach. In short, it's the real, lawful, viable, airtight, practical solution for anyone looking to stop using the all caps name person that suggests that, as we discussed, subjects you to the United States, right, and still function in society.
All right. So can you get into like a little bit of the specifics of that, maybe just to perk people's interest and maybe bring it into like real life examples, even if you would, just so people could really relate. Like, what was it like what was it like for you when you began operating through the Private Express Trust and you stopped using the name and you stopped using the Social Security number? I mean, you know, how was the first few days in the world for you? I'm like, what? Bring it down to your, you know, your experience, if you would, just for a moment.
Okay. Yeah. You know, Rockefeller said that the secret is to own nothing but control everything. Okay. And the Private Express Trust is how you do it. Okay. And for me to stop well, I had the benefit of a whole bunch of banks helping me, lose attachment to my property. Okay, I think a lot of us have had that benefit. They came in, sent 18 police to my door to take the house, and repo man to take the car. Okay, so I had some assistance in realization that I really didn't want to be in that plane, in that realm, in that way. And this was many years ago. So, I needed a new way of operating, and I needed it right away. For me, it was pretty easy to immediately become detached from that all caps name because, really all it was holding was liabilities. It sure is nice to operate from a position of private trust where, those liabilities do not exist. I can't be brought into the, court's jurisdiction in the things, in the ways I operate now. I can't be required to have a driver's license. I can't be required to file taxes. I mean, we're talking about an entirely different way of operating that allows me to do things the way I see fit and proper, and with full accountability, as opposed to having the government step in the form of someone in a long robe or a uniform or whatever else, and tell me that they're the trustees and they're going to take over now.
Yeah. How, in terms of exchanges when you go to the store, you're the trustee. So is the trustee using Federal Reserve notes that belongs to another trust that the master trust has priority security interest in? Do you use Federal Reserve note? It's not even you, right? Because you operate as the trustee. So how do you make a purchase to get food at the store or something like that, or get gas? I
think accounting is the biggest factor here, because there's a term in law or in finance.
Yeah, I would love for you to share your personal experience too. So just at any time, feel free to jump in there and share about your own personal experience as well.
Yeah. This boils down to an everyday life in the trustee, and it boils down to accounting. The one major thing that we need to concern ourselves with is commingling funds. That's the concern. Operating as a trustee, you may have your own personal life that you are handling. You may even be handling things with the person. You may be juggling both, wearing both hats like Andy Griffith does. The fact is that you can operate from any capacity at any given time, which is the benefit of the Private Express Trust, because it does not force you to expatriate or separate yourself from the person. The person still exists and is still intact. It's just not being used for any commercial purpose. So in the day of the life of a trustee, it's simplistic. Things are still purchased with currency that comes out of your pocket, whether it be silver dimes or Federal Reserve notes, because the Federal Reserve note is a military script. It does not avail jurisdiction to a private contract by its simple use, in my belief. And we could have a debate about that all day long. But the fact is that it boils down to accounting. When you are operating on behalf of the trust as trustee, you are accounting for those funds as trustee. When you are operating on your own time, you're operating on your own time. But walking into a store, it's no real different. The money comes out of your pocket. It's whether or not you're in the capacity of trustee or person that you do it.
Okay.
On your question about the Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve notes are a dual-purpose currency for all debts, public and private. And if you go to the Treasury site, you'll see that they claim on the site that the reason that U.S. dollars are not printed anymore is because the Federal Reserve note can serve all the same purposes that the U.S. dollar did or does. Okay, and the U.S. dollar was a backed currency. It was fiat because it was by government decree, but it wasn't elastic. And the elastic currency, the Federal Reserve note, is evidence of a debt. So we're dealing with different instruments. But what they're claiming on the Treasury site is that the Federal Reserve note can be used as a U.S. dollar, because the reason they don't print U.S. dollars anymore is because the Federal Reserve note can do anything the U.S. dollar did. Therefore, the Federal Reserve note can act as lawful money. It does not have to act as military scrip. So it has a dual purpose. and when used correctly, it can be used.
And it needs to be expressed, right, Christian?
Yeah, it needs to be expressed at every banking transaction or
Say that again. What needs to be expressed?
So we actually I'm glad you asked this, because we have a whole series. Our third series for 2013 is about private banking and lawful money, and we're going to cover all of this in depth, and we're going to show how to bank and transact business without entering the U.S. jurisdiction by means of the Federal Reserve note debt instrument, the elastic currency. We're instead going to be able to use that same piece of paper as lawful money. And if we're going to be covering that, that's going to be an awesome webinar series. It's currently scheduled to be our third one this year, after we cover exempt organizations starting May 8th, and then trust web structures after that, and then we'll get into the private banking and lawful money. That series is called Living Free of the System.
What a beautiful title. That sounds really, really wonderful.
By the way, we do have a special offer that's going on right now, too, for some of our offerings as well.
Yes, we do. Thank you for bringing that up. I do want to let listeners know about that. So everybody, PJ and Christian from GTEN has made a special offer for listeners of the Humanity Transcending show. So this is how it goes. If you register for the Private Trust Education course at GTEN.org, they will also register you for their new upcoming live webinar series, what we were just talking about, what they mentioned, exempt organizations, for free. So you get 2 education courses, 2 webinars for the gift of 1. This special offer is part of their project Pay It Forward. So your donation will cover enrollment in both courses and 1 year of membership to GTEN.org for you and a friend. I, by grace and their generosity, became a member, and I'm loving the site. It's a masterful resource, so I encourage you all to, consider taking advantage of this offer. So all you need to do is send an email to trustees, and I'll drop this in the chat box, trustees@gten.org, after registering for the private trust education. Mention you want the Humanity Transcending special offer, and give the name and email of the friend you want to include. And both of you will be registered for both courses and 1 year membership to GTEN.org. It is really, really an amazing special offer. I'll have everything I just said. I'll have that up on my website after the show, so you can, take a look at that. And if you guys want to add anything to that, please do so.
The only thing I would add to that, and thank you for announcing that. The only thing I would add to that is that the reason we're offering it specifically this way, because we have a number of offerings on our site, is that the Private Trust Education series is the best place to start with us. I mean, it is a very comprehensive understanding of the Private Express Trust, and it includes the documents to set up a Private Express Trust, hundreds of documents to administer the trust. It's a complete package for trusteeship, Private Express Trust, and that's kind of the core of where of what we do and where we're coming from, and we want people to get that first, and that's a recorded webinar that's instantly available when you sign up. And to us, it's important that that people come and do our live webinars that we've got going on and whatnot. But if we can find a way to make it really affordable for your listeners to get that background information, then we thought that was really valuable. So that's why we decided to offer that.
And just a little background on recorded sessions, and everything that we do. We record everything because we want individuals to work at their own pace. We realize that life is changing. It's ever changing for everyone. Everybody's got something else going on. So becoming a member, we give you a year because we want you to take the time the effort and have the enthusiasm to go through our work, take a good look at it, and fully understand it to the point where you can implement it in your own life. And so, our series are all recorded. They are all accessible in our members portal for all of our members that are participants of those groups or of those series. And it's just a great opportunity for one to go at their own pace and operate. And I think that's something that we really like a lot. So when you sign up for the live webinar, you have the great advantage and opportunity of asking us questions in real time, which immediately forms the structure right there and what we're creating, and we get so much more from it. So we love individuals that are interactive. We love speaking with people throughout our series. We oftentimes will take questions during at any given time, or sometimes we'll organize them, but we really want people to be interactive with us because, like Christian said before, it is a network. We are not the sole entities here. We're the ones that are just presenting it to the public for the world to see. So it's really the network that brings us our information and that we provide for others. So without that, we really wouldn't be as far as we are. So we also thank all of our members. It's a great benefit to have so many supporters. So
yeah, excellent. All right, and I'll, again, like I said, I'll make sure that that's up on my website. For listeners, you can go to humanitytranscending.com and just check out the special offer for Humanity Transcending listeners. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. That's really amazing.
And, I know there's a lot of offers out there. There's a lot of information, a lot of things going on. I think what makes us different really is the focus on individual empowerment, individual education, and not the focus on document-based remedy. We don't provide magic paperwork. We don't provide anything that is not based or relevantly sourced. We need source material in everything that we do. So I think that's what sets us apart from the rest is we dabble and we take theories and we take them apart by way of the scientific method, and we're able to really put some foundational source material behind what we preach and what we present. And so I think that's what really sets us apart from the rest, and what makes us different is the fact that everything that we do is foundationally based in source material.
Okay, right. So you're saying like none of it is really speculation, and if it is, you make that really clear. It's just for purposes of maybe discussion, but everything that you present as far as your course material for any given topic, I know you say if you can't find it somewhere in some code or just to back it up, not even to cite it, but to know what's so for that realm, you don't use it.
Yes, that's correct. And if we feel that the source is in any way less than stellar or less than what we want to be presenting, we will let our members know that this is either hearsay, or this is a perspective of someone, or this is an opinion, or this is a theory. And we want to make sure that individuals know what is strongly based in law and what we are speculating and what we are looking to create. In between there is where we find our our perfect match of what we do and who we are, is allowing us to explore those imaginative ideas, explore those theories, explore what individuals are saying, and then base your findings from source material that allows you to create a very strong foundational knowledge of this information, because there's so much. There's so much to take in.
There's so much, and it's easy to get lost in the sea of it sometimes. That's how I pretty much first came to Zach, who I know you're friends with from Order of Merchants, and I was like, help me, man, because I'm like just drowning in so much stuff. I don't even know where to turn my attention to anymore. There's just so many different things, so many people to be watching, interviews, radio shows, just listening, everybody from Winston Shrout to Ted Turner to, reading Mary Croft's book a while back, just so many different things. And it can feel like just overwhelming, and
gosh, Mary Croft, Mary Croft
almost hit rock bottom and be like, wow, I got to start over again, but I got to figure out the best way. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, Mary Croft, what a great read. I remember that was one of the first things that I ever read. And the whole issue is that what a lot of individuals have focused on are remedies, but the results of those remedies are sporadic, they're sparse, and they only work some of the time. And so, you've mentioned some individuals. There's plenty of individuals out there that are teaching and giving information, showing individuals how to contract, how to operate in law, and how to operate in court or with any officer. And you'll find that the remedies only work some of the time. It's a difficult perspective to come from because you don't know whether or not what you are doing is wrong or whether the judge is acting inappropriate, because what you're operating is off of theory to some extent. It's a remedy that only works some of the time, and there's no, it's hard to get that, it's hard to clear out the variable and ensure that it's a solid foundational remedy. And I'm sure you've run into that a few times where you're in a position where you've said something to a judge and the judge is like, I don't know what you're talking about. He may very well know what you're talking about. He may just be testing you. You're going to come from one of three places. The judge is either going to not know what you're talking about, he's going to know what you're talking about and test you, or he's going to know what you're talking about and he's not going to put up with it.
Right.
And remember, it's perfectly legal for a police officer, for example, to lie to you. I mean, they're allowed under the code to lie to you. So, when you're operating out in the world, you want to know what you're talking about and stand on the right things to stand on, and that comes from source material. That doesn't come from someone's thought up remedy that works some of the time. You want to be in your day-to-day operations, you want to be operating lawfully and not necessarily legally. They're not the same thing. We want to be operating from a position of Supreme Court decisions, from a position of major treaties, from major documents like the Declaration of Independence, for example, the Northwest Accords. I mean, you want to know you're operating from a position that can't be questioned. And if it is, it's only to see if you know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, we try to only present, solid source material as the understanding we give.
And that's a beautiful thing, because that seems to bring it all around full circle, especially people who embarked on this type of journey. It's nice to come back around. And I had this realization just in between the time of speaking with you guys the other day and, and now, like when I wrote my book, I was in a research frenzy. I was making sure everything I was going to be discussing, I could find in several different places and, quote unquote, authoritative sources. And it's like, oh, I need to do that with this too. For some reason, I didn't link the two. That I would actually want to be getting my information, not necessarily to cite it and use their jurisdictional basis for anything, but to know that it exists, to know that, yes, this right is protected and is referenced in this particular case by the Supreme Court decision. It just hadn't occurred to me. And now it's like, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
I think a lot of your listeners probably know what a negative averment affidavit is. It's a part of an administrative process in commerce, right? And I've read a lot of them. People have sent me a lot of them. Can you look this over? And what I find is that when I do an administrative process and include a negative averment affidavit, every sentence in the negative averment affidavit comes straight out of Supreme Court case law. Like, why would I look anywhere else? It's like, how if the job of the person receiving the affidavit is to refute it, how are they going to refute it if it's the supreme law of the land?
Right. Yeah, perfect point. It comes back to being pretty simple in the end. I guess it seems really, really complicated at first and as you're going through, but you guys bring this air of just like logical simplicity to it, and that's really refreshing. I wanted to just, you're welcome. We have usually the show ends about 5:02, so we have about 15 minutes left. In two nutshells, I would like It doesn't matter who. You could each take one of them if you like, but I would like for you to just share a little bit about natural rights. What do you want people to walk away with? Just speak to them a little bit about natural inherent rights and how they're already there. All of this is just to protect those rights.
I'd love to.
Yeah, and then the other thing to throw in real quick after is the idea of a will and testament now, because we touched on this the other day, that, it's not till impending death is really, really near that sometimes people think about creating a will and expressing their testament. So I know that's part of this process, or could be part of this process, so maybe just touching on doing that in the here and the now, expressing our will and testament now. So those two things, whoever wants to take either one. Great.
PJ, I'll take the first one, you take the second?
I dropped out for the first one.
Okay, I'll take the first one, you take the second one. The second one's will and testament. All right, so yes, I would love to address that. That's a great subject to talk about. So the law starts with the divine, okay? Divine law is the highest form of law, and it is what you see around you, okay? It includes the law of physics, okay? It includes the laws of quantum mechanics, okay? It is the way things really are. It's the truth, okay? It's the truth at least, well, not just at least. It's the truth from divine truth of the universe to include the way things operate here on this planet in this three-dimensional realm that we're running around in our bodies. Okay, so it's all encompassing of all of that, and it's just plain true. It's Mother Nature's laws. Okay, from that we can derive maxims of law, and maxims of law are a statement about the truth, and by making that statement, that it's the first tier of fiction, right? Because it's not what's true, but it's representation of what's true. Just like a photograph is not you, it's a representation of you, therefore it's a fiction. Okay, so understand that these are layers of fiction that we're talking about. Okay, but the maxims of law are what's asserted to be true to everyone and irrefutable. Okay, and nobody could really make a case that a maxim of law isn't the case. He who leaves the battlefield first loses by default. Okay? There you go. Who's going to refute that, right? And there's a whole bunch of maxims of law, and they are, the closest thing to truth, the closest written thing to truth, written or spoken, rather. And then from there's common law. And common law is basically the way law is interpreted through court decisions over time. It's based on previous court decisions. And there's equity, which runs parallel to common law, which is kind of more what's fair. It comes from the Court of Chancery back when the common law in England was too strictly adhered to, and people were getting unfair shakes in court, and they would go to the king and say, use your power to straighten this out because it was unfair, and the king would do so. Okay, so that's kind of where that emanates from. And so the way we structure our lives and our trusts is that they are to be administered under divine law as expressed in the maxims of law, and equity as expressed in the maxims of equity. And they exist at common law. All of the stuff that comes beyond, comes in after that, admiralty, jurisdiction, statutory, code, these are all, degrees of fiction that we don't necessarily want to play in. Now, we might enter into admiralty to contract, but we don't want our trusts and our own rights to be centered in those jurisdictions. And I know this sounds confusing to some people, and there's a lot to absorb, but basically think of it as a hierarchy of rights. Okay? And rights are different from liberties, which are different, again, from benefits and privileges. And, an unalienable right or an unalienable right is one that cannot be contracted away. It's yours. It is part of divine law. You cannot contract away your right to contract, because in doing so would require you to contract. Okay? You cannot give up certain rights. You cannot give away your right to personal liberty. You cannot give away certain things. Okay? And then inalienable rights came about because governments wanted to start to control a little bit, and an inalienable right can actually be contracted away, or it can be given up. Liberties, going down the hierarchy of powers here, liberties it comes from shore leave. It comes from the nautical days of exploring the world, when the captain would grant you the liberty to go ashore for 3 days, unless he decided to change his mind and sail off, in which case you were due back on the ship. And if you didn't return to the ship, you were AWOL. So you didn't have the right of personal liberty. You didn't have the right to do what you wanted to do and move around freely on the island wherever you were, or in the town that you were birthed in. You just had the liberty, which could be revoked at any time. Benefits and privileges come, even lower than that. They're what we operate in if we use our straw man or our all caps name person, because the person is created by the government, and the benefits and privileges are granted by the government. So the difference, for example, between the right to personal liberty, which is the right to locomotion, the right to move freely about on the land as long as you don't hinder someone else's right, can be compared with the driver's license, which is a privilege. So you have a right to move about freely, but you've traded it through your contracting with the United States for a privilege to drive. Okay, and where we like to, point out these differences is where your operational base is. If you're operating from a position of unalienable rights, and you know what those rights are, then you do not need the privilege offered by a license, or by submitting to a jurisdiction by operating a corporation instead of a private trust, for example. Once you know your rights, they're yours, and you can operate from them. Does that do it?
Yeah, thank you. All right, and PJ, so did you get to hear the second piece?
I believe it was presently empowering ourselves with our will and testament, right?
Yes, it was, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so as you know, we've been talking about trusts. Anyone that knows basic trust law knows that there are 3 parties to any trust. There are a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary. To ensure that there is what's known as a control test, the trustee needs to be separate from the grantor. I'm not going to get too much into trust law, but just to understand that the trustee and the grantor, primarily for it to become irrevocable and for it to operate as a separation of power, needs to be 2 different people. Okay, so we aren't just doing this on our own. You guys out there, you have to find yourself somebody you trust. That's the whole purpose of this, is find people you trust. As you would probably assume, Christian operates as a trustee on my behalf. I have operated several times as a trustee on Christian's behalf. And the will and testament was granted through separate trusts, each of us granting specific duties and obligations, rights and interests, performances and laws, articles, and appointing a trustee after we've created that document. So us as grantors trust someone to handle our affairs for us. And that happens immediately. It happens immediately because why wait until you're 60 or 70? Most individuals don't fully understand even their rights or the rights of jurisdiction, let alone probate and transfer of assets upon death. These things are all very, very interesting topics The private express trust avoids all of that because it places the property in the hands of a trustee, and that trustee has a sole discretion, and there are successor trustees thereafter, and the power can be passed successively with no transfer of property necessary. Beneficiaries can be assigned at any given time, and they can proceed as they see fit to preserve a legacy for their family. Doing this now, I believe, gives you a great advantage to understanding what you're doing now, because I think a lot of individuals in their end time are so old and in the way, I would say, of their own beliefs, their own perception, that now is a perfect time to break open the perception and understand that if you want your will and testament to be enacted, if you are truly the creator, then you can create your life as you wish right now by simply declaring it and placing somebody in charge to manage it for you. And that individual can do the same thing. And you guys could even exchange powers if you wanted. But I do suggest you do some strong research into trust law and understanding how to create these, because we do not recommend that you go and do this on your own, and we do not recommend that you do this without some form of professional assistance. So.
Right. Okay, definitely goes without saying. Just like anything else, we don't want to, be running ahead of ourselves with very little foundation and knowledge. But we think we can accomplish something. We really just want to take it easy and understand what we're doing.
And just a disclaimer: we do not practice law. We do not we do not do any tax work. Everything that we do is void or prohibited by law. We look to make sure that we are operating in the best public interest and preserving both private and public rights at any given time.
All right, excellent. One of the things that I found interesting is just in thinking and contemplating about all of this type of information and what you guys are sharing is I find that the type of trusteeship that you speak of and that it comes along with the private express trust it's very can be looked at metaphysically and spiritually, because or just trusteeship in general is where you don't own anything. You're just kind of here controlling what is what you've been given to use until you expire. Nobody owns anything. Like when we expire, we don't get to take anything with us tangible from this world. So we are all really trustees in a way, because we're controlling what has come into our possession, but we don't own it because we cannot take it with us when we go. So I feel like this type of trusteeship is almost a level closer to reality. Living more in reality, because you're not owning anything. You're not even thinking, this ridiculous idea that you can own something.
Siobhan, I couldn't say it better myself. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I think that's really insightful, and it's absolutely true. I mean, you don't own anything. You can't own anything. It's ridiculous to think you can own anything. Yeah. And in fact, the only people who believe they own anything just don't know the truth. The truth was laid out in the Lieber Code, adopted by the Hague. It's all a usufruct. If you want to look up usufruct, you're going to start to get into a whole rabbit hole. You don't own anything. Nobody owns anything. You don't own your car. You don't own your house. That's all split title, and it's all based in usufruct. So we only pretend to own things, and it makes us feel good to think we have ownership or we've amassed some sort of wealth or whatever. But the truth is, it's all God's property, and we're all God. We're all one, and you don't individually own a thing. You only control it. And if you don't control it, therein lies your mistake.
And irresponsibility in a way, because here it is in your possession. What are you going to do? Am I going to be responsible and step up to that role of managing what the gifts that I have and the things that are in my possession? Or am I going to just let it all go astray and then blame the outside world? No, I mean...
You could think of it like this. If the Almighty, however you believe, the energy, the spirit, the universe is the creator, the grantor, and you are now trustee of this property, whom is the beneficiary? Who are you going to benefit?
Well, certainly the generations to come. I mean, in a way, I benefit too, and those around me, because I share the things that I are in my possession. I share and enjoy those things with other people. So it's kind of like, I don't know. What were you getting at with that? PJ, you there? We lost him, man. Just a minute there.
I hope he gets that sorted out before we start our webinars on May 8th.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, okay, look, he's back. PJ. Oh, he left. Okay, well, anyway, it's kind of closing time anyway. Let's see. Guests for us. Let's see. Okay, are we all back? Christian, PJ. Poor PJ. He's sick of it. Okay, PJ, we love you, and thank you so much for being with us and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and all the offerings. Thank you for being with us. Christian, you're still with me, yes?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Siobhan, what a pleasure this has been. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, me too. Likewise, and you're welcome, and thank you. And maybe you can come on again, in a few months when you have a new series launching or something like that. I'd love for you to become, a semi-regular if you'd like to be.
I think I speak for both of us to say that we accept. Yeah, keep up the good work. I love what you're doing. I look forward to the Wolf Spirit Radio Show on April 30th.
Oh, yes, me too. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be with you again next week. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? No, how dare you? No, how dare you? How dare you? No, how dare you? You dare condemn me? How dare me when how dare you? You big peepee head.
Hello all, thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. We are the #1 public access, commercial-free internet talk radio station on the web, with between 12 and 16 hours of live programming per day, bringing you news, politics, entertainment, and just plain human interactive talks with our extremely informative and successful nightly open caller roundtables. And how do we do this? Through the support of volunteers and donations from good listeners like you. So if you're digging what you hear, and we are bringing you an entertaining and informative service, please visit our site support page and donate to the cause. Keep us live, keep us kicking, help us bring you the talk. We are already here. Help keep us here. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio!